As I've been talking to people, it's obvious that many people are afraid, either for their own concerns or for those of their loved ones. Some are worried about their health or people that they know that might be vulnerable to the coronavirus. We probably all know somebody whose job is either been let go or can be, or suffer perhaps even just loss of their retirement through investment losses. So it's obvious that many people are very unsure as to what the future is going to hold. So my favorite staff person, Sister Ricarda, mentioned that I, as a pastor, should be reaching out to people to let them know that they are missed, let them know that they're prayed for, and to give them good news and reason to hope. So is there a chance that we could do 2 out of 3? I do miss people. The reality is I did not become ordained for my own sake. I was ordained for the service of people. So celebrating Mass in an empty church is certainly not my intention. It serves a purpose, but it's not the ideal goal. We're always supposed to be celebrating the Eucharist, which is all about community. Knowing that people aren't present makes it a little bit of a different situation, but know that I am offering daily prayer, not only the celebration of the Mass, but my own personal prayers for people. It's been rather unusual to celebrate Mass in this way. Quite frankly, I have a varying schedule. So I get up, I pray, and I only say Mass after I'm ready to. So this has been interesting and a good experience for me because I think I'm better prepared and in a better spirit and place to be able to celebrate Mass. So in one sense, it's going to be hard going back to a scheduled Mass where I have to hit a timeline, a deadline to go with. So on to the third point. What's the reason for our hope? And it's an uncertain circumstance, uncertain future that we are facing. And that in itself is not unusual. The reality is we are never certain of our future. Instead, we take things for granted. We assume that we have a nest egg, so we are secure. We assume that we have insurance and good health, and that will last at least long enough. So we often have our heads in the sand thinking that we have a better understanding of our future than we actually do. Monsignor Dan's death is a good example that we never knew how bad a health condition might be. Certainly it was a surprise to his family and to our parish community. So it's a reminder that our own mortality is never a sure thing. So we will die, we just don't know exactly when. So we have to be aware that sometimes we take our future for granted. And that's not how God necessarily wants it. He doesn't want us to worry about our future, but at the same time, he is hoping that we learn how to be dependent upon him and okay with uncertainty as opposed to having our future firmly defined and fixed. So even though we may never have been here before in terms of experiencing a pandemic or having global crisis in the scale that we currently are in, the reality is that people of God have often faced very dangerous, threatening, uncertain futures. And it often occurs at a time when God is ready to do something remarkable in the process. So it turns out that Noah was given the instructions to build an ark and load it up with animals because God was planning a major remodeling project for the earth and he wanted to get the animals and Noah's family out of the way. God does not tell Noah how long it's going to take. It certainly was not a 3-hour tour. So after 40 days and 40 nights on this boat, it might give you a whole new appreciation for what it means to shelter at home and deal with our daily-to-day frustrations. The second occurrence where God is leading people into the unknown is when he tells Moses to lead the Hebrew people out of slavery in Egypt to freedom, the Exodus in the desert. I don't know that anyone would have launched into the desert knowing that this is going to take 40 years. The Jews started complaining after the third day about the circumstances, the conditions. And so it's a case that God isn't remodeling the earth. Instead, he was planning to remodel the hearts of the people. And odds are remodeling people's hearts takes a little bit longer than it does God to remodel the earth. So in some sense, we can be a stubborn lot, we human beings. Another case is Joseph and Mary. Mary is clued into the Annunciation, but not giving a whole lot of detail. Joseph is told that he's supposed to take the Holy Family and run from another life-threatening threat. And the future is certainly unknown for them. When Jesus sends off his disciples, his apostles, he sends them off woefully ill-prepared with next to nothing. And he knows that in the process, they will learn how to become totally dependent upon one another, dependent upon the grace of God that's present through the people that they'll be interacting with, and that they're going to learn as much in their ministry from the people as they think that they're taking the ministry of God to them. So these are all wonderful examples of how God works with the uncertainty and leads people to where they need to be. So with that in mind, we don't know what our future is going to be. We have no idea how long this is going to take. And quite frankly, God may be stripping us of all the things that we become dependent upon to help us to realize that we need to become dependent upon one another. Open in minds and hearts, and there learn the definition of true sacrifice for the sake of one another. Quite frankly, this is an opportunity for us to learn how to live the gospel far more authentically than perhaps we have it when we go simply to church and forget the rest during our week. So I don't know if this lifted you up at all or not. I feel a little bit better about observing those things in Scripture myself. And the reality is God works through remarkable ways. So I wouldn't rule out God's wonderful hand being played out in the midst of this global tragedy.